KCC311 week number 8, we need to talk about percentiles. This is the last video for the week. We already talked about a mean, median, mode. We talked about area graphs, but now we have that area graph. We want to figure out how to calculate percentiles in the spreadsheet and then label them on a graph. So let's check out what we had last time. Last time we took the taxi rides, 5,000 taxi rides in the city of Chicago. We put them into this template and we put the groups. Tell me how am I breaking up the times between 0 and 100 seconds, 200, 300, and it tells me how many people took each ride. This data, the frequencies, we can graph and say, wow, look at most people are taking about a 500 second, roughly 8-minute taxi ride. Fewer people are taking these 1,500 minute, closer to a half an hour taxi ride. Okay, that makes sense. But there's one other way I can see this. If I'm seeing the ups and downs of the graph, I'm saying most people take a taxi ride that's less than 1,000 seconds. But what's most people mean? 80% of people? Do you think 80% of people are in this group and then there's 20% in this group? That's what a percentile is. A percentile says, cut this off and say, okay, 80% are here, 20% here. On the vice versa, it may be the 5th percentile is way over here. There's 5% of people take these really short rides, and then 95% of people constitute everybody else. How do we calculate it? Let's go to the spreadsheet. And you know the first step, equals, always equals. I'm going to start typing percentile. All right, we see some options come up. There's some different ones. Percentile rank, exponent. Don't worry about subtleties. Just go straight for percentile. First thing I had to type in, the data. I'm looking at taxi rides. So that's in column A. I click the A up top, comma. Well, what percentile do I want? I was just guessing 80%. I'm going to type in 80%. You don't have to, if you type it 0.80, if you convert it to a decimal, that's fine. I'm putting the percent, it's simple. All right, now, just guessing. I'm looking at this picture. I'm saying, yeah, let me guess about 1,000. I think 80% of people are less than 1,000, and I think there's only 20% of people taking these longer taxi rides. Let's hit enter and see what I get. Boom. Ooh, 1,080. I was really not that far off. So in other words, the percentile is roughly about here. You got to kind of interpret in between, and 80% of people are less than 1,080 second taxi ride. 20% of people take a longer one. Okay, I now have that information, but if I have the number here and the graph here, I would really like to connect those. So this is what I'm going to do. And also, your week 8 assignment is to create a graphic. So we know how to do this. Google Drawings. I can go up here and create a title. So taxi rides in the Chicago city. Okay, this is great, this is great. I need a graph, so let me go back to this graph. I click the graph, Control-C, copies the graph. I go back here, Control-V. I just want to paste it, unlinked. In other words, I just want the picture. Okay, taxi rides in Chicago. I got a graph. I know a percentile, but how do I label it? Go up here. This little thing says shapes, and now I have different ways. I could put an arrow. I could draw an arrow right on where I think 1,080 is, and I would highlight it. I'm going to try something called a call-out. Basically, if you're writing a comic book, that's the text bubble. And I'm going to write a big old bubble here. Big enough that I can write the information I need. I can say the 10th, 80th percentile. And then this little triangle here, I can put down right about here. It looks roughly 10,080. And now I can start typing. The 80th percentile. Oh my goodness, my fingers aren't working. That works. Is 1,080 seconds. That is correct. I have a very basic graphic title. I have a graph. I have we would call it an annotation, but here I'm telling you the percentile. This is great. And if you type this for your percentile, you're not wrong, but let's face it, that sounds a little mathematical. You might want to say something like 80% of taxi rides are less than 1,080 seconds. And if you want, you can convert that to minutes. And you could say it the other way. You could say 20% ride more than. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. That's for you to figure out. And just one other way to do it. If I go back to here, let's do another percentile. Let's say equals percentile. Okay, I want percentile. I want column A. I want the taxi data, comma. Let's say 5%. This should be really small. This is the short people. People just get in and go for 2 blocks. And I get 120. So that's 2 minutes. They're very short. Let me go back to the graphic. Okay, here's another way I could do it. I go to shape, and I could go to, let's see, where do we have one? I was talking about a little arrow. So put an arrow right here. Now, 120 would be, I don't know, roughly here. But now there's not enough room to create a text box. So you might have to make another, okay, here, let's put a rectangle underneath and say 5% of people, you can fill in the rest from there. So what am I doing? We created this graph, that was a previous video, and now I'm able to annotate I'm able to put some data on top of that graph. And what sort of data? We're using these percentiles. And that helps me see this data much more clearly. I use taxi rides. You can use divvy rides, but it's the same idea. You're going to create an area graph for divvy rides, and you maybe say, hey, 80% of divvy riders are less than this. 5% are here. You don't have to use 80 and 5. You could say 50%, 90%, 62%. That's up to you. But that constitutes the main idea for your week number 8 assignment. I did it here in Google Sheets. If you do Microsoft Excel, it should be virtually similar. Any questions, you reach out to me via email. But your finished product will look something like this. Hopefully a little more style than what I have. Put some graphics on here, pictures, make the title stand out a little more, make it pop, colors, all that sort of thing. But you're going to create that submission week number 8. And the last thing also, whenever you get, for your week 8 submission also, don't just submit the graphic, submit for me also the spreadsheet. You'll see both links in the course documents. Any questions, reach out via email.